Peace, love, and happiness, family. I want to come to you and want to talk to you a little bit about mind, mood, and emotions. I want to deal with the idea that these things are affected heavily by the chemicals that we are introduced or that we have been introduced into our environment, into our food, into our water, and into other things that we come into contact with on a daily basis. Let's talk about the epidemic of ADHD diagnosis amongst our young children. These things are very troublesome, meaning that this does not have to be the case if we would only recognize the effect of the foods that we consume, the water that we're drinking, and the environmental pollutants that we are exposed to, and understand that if we take concrete steps towards minimizing our intake of these things through the food and the water, which we can control to a certain degree, not so much the environment, which we cannot control as individuals, but as a collective group, we could definitely put pressure on those that are empowered to do the things that they should do to protect our health. These kids are being basically engineered into ADHD diagnosis from several aspects. Also, those aspects, they also pertain to the mother and the father and the genetic chromosomes that they pass on. Your behavior impacts your child on many levels before that child is born. It's in our sperm and in the female's egg, those character traits and those propensities that can be affected by chemicals and that can remain within the spermicide and within the, not the spermicide, but in the sperm and in the egg. And when they meet, these things are passed on in the development of the child. So we must take into account not only what it is that we're consuming, especially if we're producing children, but we also must take into account while we have the children, specifically the female, while she's carrying that child for the birth term, she should be focused on eating clean, healthy foods, and she should understand that what she consumes directly impacts the development and the growth of her child. These things are serious and they must not be underestimated. Also, once that child is born, exposing that child to all the chemicals and the feel-good candies that you give the child, the cytotoxins, those toxins that damage and kill off nerve cells, that create jitteriness, that create instability within the minds of the child, and that also helps to heighten the child's desire for more excitement, more anxiousness, the inability to calm down, which children are going to have that inability in and of themselves because they are children, but it is exacerbated by what it is that they have been exposed to even before they've been birthed and continue to be exposed to with the feeding practices that many of us unknowingly engage in that aids into the idea of ADHD. Again, some people will argue that this is not really a disease, which it may not be in terms of something that can be quantified or qualified and scientifically diagnosed through a blood test, but it definitely can be seen in behavior abnormalities, and these abnormalities stem from 90% of what we're dealing with is dealing with the consumption of food, the consumption of water, and the chemicals that are in these foods, in our water, the chemicals that are in the environment that ill affects the physiological processes of a natural growing human being, as well as it attacks the brain and causes all types of behavior abnormalities in the growing child. The child doesn't know what it's hit with, and therefore the child only is responding to what its body is demanding of it to respond. We must take the responsibility and learn. So we must do better. We must learn more, and we must eliminate the willful ignorance that we accept, because we don't want to take on the responsibility to handle that which is of enormous magnitude. Peace and love, family.